While Borderlands 3 didn't get everything right, one thing it's often held up for is its large slate of constant buffs to underused skills and guns in the game, trying to always keep an eye on what's being left behind, and increasing its viability accordingly. That has resulted in some interesting data, showing that over time, between patches and hotfixes, Borderlands 3 has listed nerfs 10.4% of the time, and buffs 89.6% of the time. If you've been following the game, it's not unusual to see patch notes that talk about one or two specific builds that have been nerfed for overdamage, but then that's followed up by a list of 4 to 5 perks and 10 to 12 guns being buffed. Granted, sometimes one nerf doesn't equal one buff. You might nerf something that destroys an entire build. And you may buff a gun where it barely does anything at all to change its fortunes. One frustrating thing about Borderlands 3's buffs in particular is that it might list 10 different guns with damage increases, but they don't give any specific numbers, so you have to wait for a bunch of YouTubers to test them all out to see what is actually good now, if you don't want to do it yourself. Still, the philosophy of always trying not to leave underused gear or perks behind is a good one, and one that few other games ever follow with any regularity. This is a constant source of frustration with Destiny players, where Bungie is always meticulously balancing the sandbox, which may result in some small buffs usually paired with larger nerfs. But loads and loads of exotics in particular have been left lagging behind for literally years now, and even when they are revisited, it doesn't often do the trick. Remember the grand Aeon rework. Other games like Outriders are now having their fans point to Borderlands and say, please do that. Instead, Outriders has only issued nerfs to player power since launch, classifying them as bug fixes, which may be true, but it still hasn't felt good. Pretty much nothing underused in Outriders, from skills to mods to weapons, has been buffed since launch at all, and fans are getting tired of waiting for that to change. Borderlands 3 does struggle with power creep, it's true, and that is in part why there are so many buffs, to get everything on a similar level, and even that doesn't work all the time. But generally speaking, it just feels better to have a game that is constantly improving things rather than only nerfing the highest powered builds or items at every turn. Because when they do that, at least you feel like they're trying to give you alternatives to check out. Anyway, I just thought this was interesting, and a good lesson for other looters. Follow me on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to my free weekly content roundup newsletter, God Rolls. Pick up my sci-fi novels The Hero Killer series, and the Earthborn trilogy, which is also on audiobook.